And welcome everyone for another afternoon tea with docs. My name is Dr. Linda, emergency medicine physician here from Sheffield, and I'm also board certified lifestyle medicine doctor. Well, if you are new to us, afternoon tea with docs is actually UK's lifestyle medicine hub, where we offer support, education, community, and the peer-to-peer support that you need to address chronic diseases, which include heart disease, hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, and even some cancers that are lifestyle related, such as breast cancer, prostate cancer, and bowel cancer. And of course, the underlying cause of it all, which is insulin resistance in most cases, and that is driving type 2 diabetes. And all of these diseases, to very high extent, are preventable with lifestyle changes. So today, we are going to learn more about mental health, and we have no other here but Jo with us, Jo Gomersall, who is going to talk about her journey on how she moved away from the crippling aspect of PTSD and how she found her legacy beyond labels. If you're new to our social media, you can find us on LinkedIn, also on Instagram and on Facebook with the handle Afternoon Tea with Docs. And all of our services are completely free of charge. So if you would like to become a member and join the community, you can find us on afternoonteawithdocs.com/membership. Now, we are going to just introduce you on Jo's bio a little bit. So she is an artist, a writer, and an activist advocate for community inclusion. Jo describes herself as a neurodivergent spoony person, which I really love. Her social labels are non-binary, bisexual, sex positive, suicide survival, infertility, and polycystic ovarian syndrome. All of these are labels that we put in medicine on our patients. It is helpful to identify certain aspects, but I love how Jo actually uses these labels to actually empower others to just use them as words rather than as identification of their personality. And this is what we are going to talk more about. She believes that passionately in creativity as a recovery approach, specifically peer-led community-based activities that sit alongside traditional clinical routes, social prescribing as a recognized term for this model. However, she feels that these terms can be problematic as they are often hijacked by media outlets and twisted into something cynical. And I would love to get deeper into this because we definitely see this in our current healthcare system. She prefers to discuss these things in more conversational and inclusive way, using terms like role modeling, buddying, and peer support. And this is exactly what we are here for at Afternoon Tea with Docs. So I couldn't be more happy to welcome you, Jo, to tell your story so that everybody can be inspired.
Thank you. It's really cool to be here. Hello, everybody. If there's anything that comes up for you as I'm talking, please, questions, links, anything like that you want to talk about, pop them in the chat, and we'll get to them. And I also be aware that my story does cover some sensitive topics, so just to make you aware of that. And if you need to check in with us, please do. If you need to mute and take a second, again, please do. There's no judgments or anything like that. So I'm Jo. Yeah. I was going to say, yes, I'm Jo. I'm here talking to you as somebody that is a survivor, that has the word tenacious used alongside them very often. And as somebody that sees that as a blessing and a curse. So I am quite far into my recovery journey. It's still ongoing. I've actually just recently started EMDR treatment, which I'm very excited about for PTSD. But my background is multi-layered. let's say. So my diagnoses, my labels are borderline personality disorder, which I don't like because it's quite, it puts a lot of the emphasis on me being broken, not what happened to me. And that is an issue that I have. And I have complex trauma over my entire childhood and several incidents as an adult as well, which compounded and re-traumatized, which led to a breakdown. So there's a lot, and I have fought really hard to stay well, to manage every day, because every day is different. And one of the biggest things that has helped me embrace me again has absolutely been the idea of radical acceptance and creativity as a way of, expressing, but also the idea of living with, not recovering from, mental health or mental illness. It's about managing, it's about coping strategies, it's about checking in with myself, it's about being accountable. And there are lots of different ways to do that. So yeah, where would you like me to start?
Yeah, thank you for introducing that. I'd love to start from the beginning, where, if you are comfortable sharing, where you're, and as much as you are comfortable with, where did your PTSD start, at what age, and how did it evolve, and how did the healthcare system kind of started adding labels to your condition, the root cause of your problem?
Yeah. So I didn't realize that I had a difficult and traumatic childhood until I was later in life. I had a very traumatic incident about 10-12 years ago, so I would have been in my early 30s at the time. And what happened, which I'll touch on in a second, shell-shocked me to a point where so many other things just came like crashing back. And I often refer to those feelings as a tsunami, because the water analogy and emotion is the best way I can articulate it. I couldn't breathe. It was just everything all at once. And I realized very quickly that there were patterns to my life that I hadn't identified previously. So it was like 30 years of trauma just hit me. And it all came to a head. I found myself sitting on a bridge, not wanting to be here anymore. It was like somebody had punched me in the heart. All these things that I thought I was normal, just they weren't normal. Being basically emotionally neglected as a child, that's not normal. Not having a parent that cuddles you or loves you, that's not normal. But for me it was. I didn't know any different. So all these things just piled up and hit me. The incident that really, I guess, triggered what would be termed as a full-on breakdown, and started my mental health and PTSD journey, was my front door was broken in by the police, and a team of police officers came screaming in to my apartment, and within the course of a few hours I discovered that my then husband of nearly 13 years, so all my adult life, had been engaging in, shall we say, less than savoury acts with children. Everything in my life stopped. I felt betrayed, angry, lost, stupid, everything. So many feelings, and the overriding one was shame and guilt, which is what led to sitting on a bridge, because I should have known. Where were the clues? You look back and you go, well, of course I should have known that, you know. And I walked out that day with nothing but the clothes on my back. I lost my job, which I loved. I lost all my possessions. I lost my family, my marriage, and myself in that. It was the beginning of realizing that organizations and institutions work for themselves and not for other people. I was never offered any support by the police. I was used for what they needed to get a conviction, and then that was that. His family closed ranks and said I must have been making it up, that there was no evidence, there was no proof, which is not true. My mother turned around and said to me, well, if I had been doing what he needed in bed, then that wouldn't have happened. And that's when I realized that that's not normal. So I lived in London at the time. I got as far away from there as humanly possible. I felt I needed to draw a line under that person and start again. I wanted nothing to do with any of that. I wanted nothing to do with him or any of the places. Just everything to me needed to be blotted out. And that worked for about a year. And then it didn't work anymore. And I had a particularly bad, what I now know to be a flashback, because somewhere around me a door had slammed very hard, and in my head I immediately went back to when the door went through. I can remember that time as if it's just happened. It's so there for me. So I'd had a very bad night. I was hyper vigilant. And I didn't know any of these terms at the time, but I was like the cat on tenterhooks. I was just every little thing. And I was not dealing with anything. I was trying to block it and not dealing with it. And my housemate said, you need to get some help. You need to do something about this. You can't live like this anymore. You've got to go and get some help. And I didn't want help. This is my problem and I needed to deal with it. Because I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell people what had happened. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to be judged by someone else about the things that I had or hadn't done, seen, not seen. So I started to stockpile tablets, because for me, I had my way out. And if I had my way out, I was fine. I could control what I was doing. And my housemate said, if you don't get help, then you need to get out. I don't know how else to help you. You have to go get help. And so I went to the doctors, because I'd started to pull up my hair and, really kind of be quite the anger that I had was turned inward. It was all towards me. I've never been angry towards anyone else. It was always, it must have been me. What did I do? I went to see my GP and got the classic, oh, you're just depressed. Here, take these tablets. You'll be fine. Give it a couple of months on these. You know, get a hobby, go for a walk, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I did all the things I was supposed to do, and I was diligent, and nothing changed. I still had nightmares. I still had a lot of suicidal ideation. I wasn't offered any counselling. It was very much take the tablets, give it a while. A few months later, the tablets weren't really doing anything, so they upped them, and then they upped them again, and then they switched them. And it took at least 2 to 3 years before I actually even got considered for any kind of therapy or talking therapy, or anybody actually recorded anything that had happened to me. It was very much like I was treated like I had a virus, and the pills would make the virus go away. Just give it time. And I knew that wasn't right, because nothing was changing. So fast forward to me actually getting referred for proper treatment. So I had what they call talking therapies, like 1-to-1 every week for about 6 months, which helped, but it didn't address the whole problem. Go on.
Jo, did they ever ask you at any point about your childhood and those flashbacks? What could they be related to?
Not until I was about halfway through the talking therapy. So at the beginning, we'd done a timeline, a typical kind of timeline, and I'd put things on there that were triggering for me. Quite big things in retrospect. So a childhood that was very much narcissistic and manipulative, no emotion, no, you know, everything I did wasn't good enough. I was raped as a teenager. I had a forced termination. I lost my grandfather, who was the only person who ever really properly cared about me, and was banned from going to the funeral. So all this stuff happened, and again, for me, it was like, oh, it's fine, you know, that's what you do, that's how people go. I didn't know any different, and I put these things on the timeline, but they were kind of glossed over. And I feel like the therapy that I had, so I found out later that the therapy that I had was with a trainee psychologist, not, you know, so that for me was a little bit troublesome, because it didn't feel like I'd been given the right level of help proportionate to the amount of trauma. And trauma wasn't even mentioned at this point. Trauma, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder because I was so emotional, and I demonstrated, this is their words, not mine, irrational and impulsive behaviour. And
this was before they have addressed that you had a very traumatic childhood. So you got labels of bipolar disorder, and that you're irrational in your behavior, even before we knew what you have experienced as a child.
Yeah, the labels were given to me very quickly. Generalized anxiety disorder was kind of thrown about as well. Never addressed the fact that the anxiety that I have comes very specifically from feeling judged, the guilt, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I was handed these labels, and I'd never heard of half these things before. So I'm very my current care coordinator would say I over-intellectualize a lot of things rather than feeling them, which is, again, it's a coping mechanism from when I was a child. I go into, how do I fix this mode? How do I appease, you know? And the labels were very damaging, because 9 times out of 10, if I had to interact with anybody on a medical basis, they would just write me off as difficult. The word that always got used with me was challenging. And I don't think my behavior is challenging. I need someone to help me work through safely what is a lot for any one person to go through. So that stint of therapy, it did help a little. I learned some coping techniques. I unpacked some stuff around my ex-husband, some of the anger. But a lot of the breakthroughs that I had were at home, like in other ways. So I got discharged from psychological services in the area with no real follow-up, no real plan. Actually, no plan. Still on the medication. And I thought, well, I'm supposed to be better now, so I must have done something wrong, or I just need to try harder. Because I've seen the person that's supposed to be the expert, and they sort of like signed me off and gone, all right, you're good now. And I wasn't good. Not by a long shot, I wasn't good. And I've had to fight. So I've had to fight every single day since, to the point that I only started proper trauma treatment 2 weeks ago. This all happened to me, the breakdown was in 2010. I've been on a waiting list for 4 years to get proper trauma treatment. The word complex trauma and complex PTSD have only been added to my labels in the last 2 to 3 years. And I am now incredibly lucky to have a fantastic therapist who is EMDR trained and is a breath of fresh air when it comes to dealing with people in mental health services. But it is taken so long, and I feel like my life has been on hold the entire time.
I'm so sorry to hear what you have gone through, but I'm even more sorry about the fact that this is not an isolated case. This is not an exception. Unfortunately, more and more, this is the rule.
Yes.
This is why your story is so important, that whilst it's very important for us to know what we are dealing with, we have to find out the root cause of our patients' problems. How we behave, especially emotionally, is very, very common and completely normal.
Yeah.
When we had to deal with very traumatic events when we were children.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
to be at the point where we are giving you those labels, even before understanding what was the root cause, that is the damaging part, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I can't escape those labels. They're there. They're there in a file that unless I write a letter and wait X amount of weeks, I'll never get to see. I'm incredibly passionate about people owning their own journey and asking questions and challenging. And that's not to say you have to be disruptive and difficult or disrespectful, but you do have a right to show up for yourself, to ask the questions, and to really kind of go, okay, but I know me better than you know me. This isn't normal for me. I need help. Not to be put on another waiting list or given more tablets. I'm still on the maximum dosage of my medication, and I've been on it for 9 years now. And every time I ask about being reduced, you're not ready yet.
But while the sentence "you're not ready yet," have we been actually addressing through that time the real root cause? Meaning, have we spoken to you about the rape that happened at such a young age, the after effect of that, the bullying and emotional abuse that you had from your family? Did we address that?
No, that is what we're going to go through now. But up until this point, it's never been addressed. Even to the point that I have been under sort of pain and infertility care since I was about 17, because of the forced termination and how it was done, and the fact that my mother was very much, we never talk about this, it didn't happen, you're not going to ruin my Christmas, you're going to be okay. We never went back for aftercare. So I ended up with a very bad infection, and essentially I can't have children now. I've never been offered infertility counselling. I've never been offered anything like that, ever.
I think it would be great to just pause for a moment. And if physicians are watching this, I would really love to just, what Monica mentioned here in the chat, that it's not about funding. Yes, we are all burnt out. Yes, we do not have enough healthcare professionals in psychiatry, but it's just so important and so possible just to take 5 minutes to really ask the patient, what do you think is wrong? Where did everything start? I'm here to listen to you. And maybe as an A&E doctor and another specialist, you don't have the knowledge in emotion work, in PTSD, but we do have the ability as humans to listen and to create a platform where you are allowed to speak to us. And maybe through that one conversation, you can find answers for yourself. Is that something that you think is important, Jo?
Yes, 1,000% yes. Because, and as I've found my voice more, I've done seminars on co-production and stuff like that, because they're buzzwords in the NHS currently. And I say to the people that I speak to, it's irrelevant what the buzzwords are, how much time you've got, how tired you are. You're a human being. If that was your sister, mother, brother, child, how would you want them to be treated? If it was you, how would you want to be treated? It does not take 4 years at school and a handbook on best practice to be a human being to someone, to care, to look them in the eye and ask them what they need. Not what you think, not what you assume. What do you need? What can I do? And don't make promises. Most people who are in outpatient services, because there is a very real difference from certain illnesses where there is an inpatient situation and the care needs to be not necessarily led by the person for their own safety. But when we're talking about outpatients, when we're talking about people that you're sending home with a prescription or telling to wait for 18 months to see someone, that is when you need to say, how do we get you to be okay enough to keep yourself safe and to get to that appointment? Because I can't promise you it's going to happen tomorrow. It will happen, but what do we do now? And that's the problem for me, was the hurry up and wait of it. every new campaign that comes out about mental health is reach out, get help, go see your GP. That's fantastic. But someone gets the courage up, and it is courage, to go to the GP and reveal stuff about yourself in a 5-minute window, and then nothing happens for 2 years. What are we saying to that person who's taken that incredibly brave step of going, yeah, I do need help? What we're saying is, that's great, not now. It is like saying to a child, not now, not now, not now. And eventually the child will learn not to ask for help anymore, just to do it themselves.
For those who are listening and they're in this position as physicians, where we cannot refer patients because the system is just crumbling, what is it that you would advise that they do in that moment? How could they give you that reassurance that they do care and that you feel empowered with that 5-minute, 10-minute appointment?
So, to anyone that's listening that has anything to do with patient facing or prescribing or anything like that, please, next time you're sat in front of your computer at work, have a look at what local community services or third sector services are available. Because every area of the UK has a recovery and wellbeing college, which is free, and it's part of the NHS, and it offers courses and check-in points for people, whether it's walking groups, creativity, learning about diagnoses, managing medication, everything. If I had known about the holistic side of recovery earlier, I genuinely think I would be much further along now. And I know that there are people out there that aren't with us anymore that would be. Because a lot of people who are within the NHS, who are employed, have a linear approach. And they go, right, well, okay, so I've only got 10 minutes and I can't do this and I can't do that. So what do you want me to do? And that's never said, but it's the impression. Whereas if somebody had said to me on one of my first appointments, we've got, there's a backlog, it's going to take time, here are your options, and let me choose what's right for me from a range of options. So recovery colleges, which again, as I say, are NHS, is part of the same system. Social prescribing, most councils have some link to social prescribing. Again, most of it is free. Third sector organisations, charities, art charities, it's about removing this insular, isolating feeling that no matter why you are experiencing low mood, suicidal thoughts, whatever that looks like for you, it normally comes from feeling alone. That's normally the unifying thing, that your depression, your illness, the voice, the internal monologue is just you. Everybody else is fine. It's just you. No one wants to be around you. No one wants to be around somebody that's negative. So if we can connect people and people can uplift each other, like the strongest thing that I feel like we have in the battle against mental health is role modeling, is seeing someone who's been there and is now there, but is honest to say that some days you slip down a bit. But what happens is each time you bounce back a little bit quicker, you come back a little bit stronger, you learn something else, or you find another ally or another coping mechanism. Because recovery is possible, but what it isn't is linear. It's like a massive roller coaster. but other people and choice and conversations and connections and being accepting is keeping you on the rails, if that makes sense.
And Jo, when was the first time that you have found out about holistic approach, and what was it for you? How did it change your life?
So I came out of the first bout of therapy, like I said, I was told, more or less, you're good now, get on with it. And I knew I wasn't where I wanted to be. So I had been going back to my GP to try different medicines and stuff like that. And I ended up very, very low one day. And it was prompted by an issue with finances, and I felt very low. And I had a conversation with a friend, and they said something about, why don't you try a class or something? And I was like, I don't want to be around people. I don't want to do group work. It's not for me. I don't want to do any of that stuff. And I got referred for an assessment to join like an anxiety group. But the assessment said I wasn't ill enough for this thing, but I wasn't well enough for that thing. Here's a couple of organisations that you might be able to join. And I felt incredibly fobbed off and annoyed. But then I took a second and I was like, what's the worst that can happen? So I actually phoned one of them and made a self-referral to a third sector provider in our area. And it started me on a journey of, there are other people here. So there was never therapy, but there was a key worker, so we could have check-ins and conversations. And then there would be like art groups and stuff like that. And I just started to feel a bit better because I wasn't existing just in my head or in the house. I had somewhere to go, someone to talk to. And that really opened my eyes to what's out there. But it's really not well documented or pushed. So that started me on my journey to where I am now, which is a volunteer creative facilitator for the Recovery and Wellbeing College in my area. I am an outsider artist that specialises in mental health art as communication. I have my first exhibition in a couple of weeks, and I've spoken at our I've spoken at our NHS board meeting as lived experience to champion experience over education. I've written an article for the Metro about how crochet and sensory tasks are very grounding for me. I kind of just spend every day kind of just trying to bang the drum for you find what works, because it isn't about having one thing that you go to, it's about having lots of things, because one day you might, and I might not want to crochet, I can't think straight, so I'll draw. Or one day I don't want to do anything like that, so I'll go in the garden. It's about having many avenues open to you.
When you started in the beginning crocheting, that was quite incredible experience for you. It was frustrating while it was building you up as well. How did you find your way out of that crochetness?
So my background has always been relatively arty. I've always really loved that side of creativity and expression. But again, as a child, I was told that it was frivolous and that colouring in wasn't a career. Even though I got into the London College of Fashion at 16, I was kind of really told not to bother. you know, stay in your lane kind of thing. So I've always had a difficult relationship with being creative and being arty, because I've always seen it, or I've always believed it to be very frivolous. So crochet just seemed like a bit of a waste of time and something that your nan did. So one day,
but you said kind of waste of time. It seems like in our current society, anything that doesn't make money seems to be a waste of time, right?
Exactly that. Yes, very much so. If you do anything like that, or you pursue a hobby like that, it's very much kind of that somebody will go, oh, that's a nice hobby. You know, it's never seen as something that is valuable or contribution. And another huge part of society now that I wish we could change is the fact that contribution does not equal finance. You can contribute to society in a huge way, and it does not have a monetary value. If you think about films, art, music, gardening, the clothes we wear, they're all ways we express and interact with other people. They're all contributions. We would never question, I don't know, Van Gogh is probably a bad example because of, you know, the mental health, but we would never question these amazing people's contribution to society. And yet we will absolutely look down and judge people who go, actually, I'm going to go and do a course for a year for me because this is what I need. It's very, very frustrating to me, and it's taken me a long time to be able to sit in my identity and go, I am an artist, I do have something to say, and I don't need to sell pieces for that to be important, because what I do is create connections.
Which within a current society where loneliness is literally killing people.
Yeah.
It is the highest currency out there. Connecting people and supporting each other is so out of fashion that we have to end up excusing ourselves to have a good time with a friend. We have to have some kind of excuse to go away and support someone, or to enjoy a good time, or even we have to bundle it into a drinking session nowadays. I'm going out to drink instead of I'm going out to be with someone, because somehow current society, of course fueled by marketing and money, is making it completely normal to spend on alcohol and acceptable more than if you just say, I just want to be with someone, I just want to enjoy your company, right?
Absolutely. If a group of guys, exactly. If a group of guys said, oh, we're going out and we're going to watch a football match and go and get drunk, no one bats an eyelid. But if a group of guys turn around and said, we're going to go and do a fishing retreat and talk about our feelings, they're never at the end of it. What are we doing here? You know, our society
got here where
exactly
how
this is the thing that is so difficult, because a lot of people will immediately go and blame social media. Now, social media isn't evil. Social media is just a thing. It's a platform. It's a vehicle. It's how you choose to engage with it. It's how you choose to utilize that platform. So for me personally, I only have 2 social media platforms, and they're both incredibly visual because that helps me. So one of the ones that I have, and I would highly recommend this to anyone that falls foul of scrolling and, you know, the mental checkout that happens with that, and then all the comparisons that happen, you know, because such and such is doing this and it looks amazing. Pinterest. It's visual, you can interact with it, but there's no conversations. It's very visually stimulating. You can find recipes and crochet patterns and art and recipes and all those sorts of things on there. But what you don't find is the news and the backbiting and the kind of one-upmanship that you find everywhere else, because we're more connected than ever, and yet we're more disparate than ever. And I don't know how we got away from being a culture that would sit and have a chat over a cup of tea or over the fence to all collectively being in separate rooms staring at a screen, wishing to connect with someone, when if we put it down, there are people.
Do you think we are already like the last generation, and that feeding into our future actually forgot how to be able to communicate with each other?
Absolutely. And I also feel like, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a teenager or a kid now, because the pressure is huge. We ask kids to decide their career path and what they want to do with their whole life at a time when their hormones, how do you expect that to work? Another thing that I feel like our mental health system is getting wrong, and it feeds into this idea of community and connection, is that we need to start empowering families. We need to start empowering the parents and the teachers and the carers to share their struggles with the children around them, so that they learn emotional skills. They learn that it's okay to falter. It's okay to get stuff wrong. You don't have to be all seeing, all doing. The more parents and teachers and caregivers hide their mistakes and their wobbles, the more the child and then the teenager goes, but I'm supposed to be good all the time. I'm supposed to be happy all the time. That's the only way people like me. That's the only way I'm useful. It's definitely something that I've learned from a parent that was completely devoid of emotion, is that the only way I'm accepted is to be happy, smiling, surface level only, and useful.
I would love to ask our listeners on YouTube, Facebook, and also here on Zoom, do you feel that your emotions are actually limited by A, the lack of understanding of what emotions actually mean, B, how we are able to and allowed to interact within society? Because as you just mentioned, you also don't feel that you can express yourself in any other way but just happy. How are you? I'm well, I'm fine, I'm happy. Well, actually, none of us are really happy most of the time. All of us are constantly struggling, and it's a daily on an hourly battle to stabilize our emotions within an environment where emotions are not allowed. And once again, we have to go back to what's happening in the alcohol fueled social outings, especially what we can see in the streets. Yesterday, I go out and there are no real human interactions that are not fueled by alcohol, unfortunately. You can see that all of that anxiety and depression and lack of acceptance of each other's emotions that are not positive, actually fueling the need to depress it even more with alcohol. Even if it's just for a night, it kind of gives you an escape route from the lack of expression. So when you have recognized this and really taken care of yourself, because nobody seems like have given you that opportunity, what was the transition in your emotions when you started doing art? What were the feelings that you started experiencing, and how do you think it has started to stabilize your trauma?
So when I reconnected with art, it started from doing, I did a very, very short CBT course, which I didn't know was a CBT course at the time. It was packaged as managing anxiety. And one of the first exercises we did in a very small group was to draw what your anxiety looks like. And that concept had never been presented to me before. And I did this little biro doodle on some printer paper and we all shared it, and everybody in the room just went, yeah, that's it. And I felt that what I'd drawn was very personal to me and that no one else would get it, but everybody in the room was almost like, yeah, like a universal kind of. And that's when I realized that as articulate as I'm told I am, and I'm starting to believe I am, when it comes to my trauma, it always feels like words aren't enough. They aren't the right words. And then I kind of get caught up in the minutiae of using the right phrasing, and also being very, very careful not to trigger someone, or trying to navigate that in a way where I'm true to myself, but I'm not hurting or potentially putting someone else in danger. So art for me is fantastic because it's subjective. I know what was in my head and my heart when I wrote it. When I drew it, or sculpted it or whatever it is. But the person interacting with it is very, very personal yet universal art. And I love the power of it. And I've been incredibly fortunate to be part of an Exploring Collections course with a charity called Outside In. And it's what we've actually done is looked at a collection of objects in a museum that are from a former pauper lunatic asylum. And it's making work in response to those items. And it's prompted me to really recognize and honor the missing voices. So one of the things we did was we went to the archives, and I stood in this very expensive, very sterile, temperature controlled room that was full top to bottom with case notes. And there wasn't a single shred of humanity in that room. Yet it was full of people's lives. And there was something about that was just so impactful to me. And that's, to me, where the intersection between art and mental health really lives, because we get very caught up in the words and the language and the diagnostics and the case notes and the letters that get sent and the appointments. Where's the feeling? Where's the true reflection of the person? I'm more than my labels. But if you read my case file, you'll never see that. If all my legacy is my medical file, you'll never know anything more about me. It doesn't say in my case file that I've got a semicolon tattoo because I tried to take my own life and this is my way of reminding myself every day why I'm still here. That's not in there. And how that to me is such a huge omission, because we're not reflecting people, we're reflecting symptoms. And I'm not a laundry list of symptoms to be fixed.
But don't you think that not only in our medical system, but also in our current society, we are not actually looking at each other as people with emotions? We are actually interacting through a non-emotive environment between each other, where emotions do seem like a very, very dangerous environment.
Yes, because everything, so all interaction, the majority of interactions that we have every day, if you think back to a standard day, it's transactional. What do you need from me? What do I want from you? It's not real. It's very surface. It's from, I need that person to let me out at the junction because I need to get where I'm going. And you go to the GP and it's very right. What do you need? What can we give you? And then you're gone. And then you go to the pharmacist and it's like, there's no, and when we do take the time to kind of actually converse with our fellow human being, what's the first thing we ask them? How are you? And what's the first thing the other person does? Lie. Our whole society is built on interacting on a lie. Because no matter how you're feeling, I guarantee you'll say, I'm fine, I'm okay, how are you? You will not say how you are for fear of appearing weak or being judged.
Or rejected.
Or rejected, exactly. So we're so scared that we default to stiff upper lip. I'm all right, could be worse. And the little phrase that I hate now, at least, it's like, oh yeah, my leg fell off, but at least it wasn't my arm. And it's that kind of mentality, it's that kind of rhetoric that undermines people sharing, people being real, because everything we consume, and it is consumed, is fake. It's designed to keep us engaged and busy somewhere else, not in the moment, and not. One of the biggest things that I'm working on right now is to get back in contact with my instinct, because I've gone so long not trusting it because everyone else has kind of told me that everything I do is wrong. And we all need to reconnect with that instinct and go, actually, do you know what? No, this isn't right for me. I mean, here's a question for everybody listening. When was the last time you cried in front of someone and didn't apologize for it?
When was the last time you cried?
Exactly. But I would put the money that I don't have on whoever has cried recently. They've done it in private, or if they've lost control in front of someone, that's what they've thought. I've lost control. I need to stop and I need to apologize. Now, when I started speaking about my past, I got teary. And one thing I don't do anymore is apologize for that, because what happened to me hurt. And it's completely okay for me to get teary about something because somebody chose to hurt me and I had no say in that. It's okay. The tears are natural, they're needed. It's even a biological response. Tears are the only way the body can get rid of cortisol. You have to cry to be healthy.
Oh, my dear. You're so brave for being able to share such traumatic past and to be able to stand up for all of those who don't have a voice. All those people out there, and there are many, I can tell you from experience, who don't have anyone to stand up for them.
They do. They have me, and I will fight every day of whatever is left on my clock to say, you're okay as you are. You're not wrong. The system is flawed. You're trying to play by rules when a system doesn't play by the rules. You're okay. There is a wealth of other people out there that feel like you do.
And I want to add here that if you do feel like society is rejecting your behavior, please remember that that is the way that you have responded as a child to the abuse that happened to you. It was a completely valid and correct way for you to behave because that's how you were able to survive.
Exactly.
Those behavioral needs at that time might not serve you today, which is good to understand that they might not serve you today, but it doesn't mean they were incorrect at the time. They allowed you to survive incredible trauma. So many people have gone through so much molestation, rape, physical trauma, emotional trauma, and we are not able to support you. And now, if you're behaving in a way where society is rejecting you, now know that that behavior served you to survive a traumatic experience. And we are so sorry that you had to do that. And through the attachment theory, we know too well that you can look at that programming. You can look at the programming that allowed you to survive, and you can change that. You can label or not bipolar or emotional unstable disorder or whatever it is. You can stabilize to the point where you can have a life like Jo. I feel after reading your bio and seeing these patients, yes, we will never be perfect because none of us are, and it's okay. But your trauma is valid, your behavior is valid, and if it doesn't serve you anymore and you feel that it doesn't serve you, through the understanding of your attachments, today you can make the change in your behavior to serve you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I would say to anyone who's feeling like that is to please take a second and really look and go, you were the child. You did what you could and what you needed to be here. And I'm thankful that you're still here. And if you are feeling like that's something that you're not comfortable with, that's okay too. There is a way through. There are people that can help you, but you have to be in a place where you believe it, because it's not going to work if everybody else is telling you what they think, because that's part of the issue. You know you. But what I would say is thank those behaviours, because they kept you safe. I had to learn to do that a while ago. I had to thank those voices in my head because they kept me safe. They were there for a reason. It's part of very, very old sort of ancestral behaviour when we needed to know that a dinosaur was coming so we could run. Those things are normal, they're natural, they're part of our behaviour. But there is a point when you're not in danger anymore and you're still on alert, that if you can and you feel yourself on alert, which is something I deal with a lot, I try to thank myself for reminding me of where we were, but I'm not in that place right now. And it normally it will become quieter. But I needed it. So honouring that voice is actually quite important, and something that I've learned to do when I'm feeling particularly anxious or vulnerable, which can happen. It happened before I came on to do this. I was a mess. I do something called a grounding havening technique, which is really simple, which I will share with you. I will have my feet flat on the floor and I will think about how I'm feeling. And this isn't a meditation. You don't have to close your eyes unless you want to. You put one hand on top of the other and you gently, slowly rub your palms and enjoy the sensation of the hands. And then you can rub your arms and soothe the child that didn't get it. Because you are valid. How you feel is normal. And your mind has kept you safe.
That's so beautiful, Jo.
You can do that for as long as you need, and you can do it anywhere. And it just allows you to reconnect with the sensation, which is here and now.
And even for those who don't have anyone to hug them, this is a wonderful practice. Which does break my heart to know that we are so alone in our current society that we have to come to the point where we have to find self-soothing practices where we feel safe and understood and heard.
Yeah.
I would love to mention here about the importance of what, as you mentioned already, how they are gifts to us, but also now currently we understand better with the current attachment theory model that emotions are neurological actions that come up, like anger and sadness, letting go, as an opportunity for you to better understand the programming that happened when you were young. And if you really listen to that emotion, they are not just things that happen and you need to ignore them, as we currently are training up our children to be quiet, not shout, don't be sad, don't cry. Those are wrong emotions. Emotions in period are wrong. Those emotions are actually, as you said, they're gifts to us to understand what are our values. And those value structures are out in the world being crossed all the time. And you can, when you hear that you become angry, when you feel and hear that voice inside, that is a clue that somebody crossed your boundary, that they have crossed your value structure. And now, instead of just getting loud and angry and shouting, you can ask yourself, what boundary did they cross? How could I articulate that in a safer way where I do not cross my understanding of what's important in expression, right? Because we can start shouting, but that shouting might actually cross our value structure of not wanting to hurt someone else. And then we feel even worse than we felt before.
Yeah.
So just an example to look into your emotions as gifts, and maybe look for Carla McLaurin's work, The Art of Empathy. I can suggest The Language of Emotion, and the attachment theory book out there, which I found very useful as well. Is there anything, Jo, that you found very useful from the point of emotions and how to work with them?
Yeah, I am a big fan of, there's a YouTube channel called The School of Life, which is amazing and has lots and lots of little bite-sized chunks on many different points of society, but has some fantastic think pieces and thought-provoking chats about. One of the ones that really helped me a while ago was No One Cares, and that's okay. And it's about this idea that we obsess as people over everyone judging us, but actually if you think about yourself, you don't remember half the people you interact with. And seeing that people don't care as a liberation experience, it's like, well, if they don't care, I might as well do what I want anyway, obviously within reason. I'm paraphrasing, but it's very, I really like it. So there are quite a few really useful. Also, I would encourage anyone that is feeling that way to go and have a little look at Stoicism in general. You know, the idea of controlling what you control and letting go of everything else, which can be summed up very quickly by the little idiom, don't sweat the small stuff, you know, because it doesn't serve you. It really doesn't. You can control what you can control, and there's a choice in everything. We might not like the choices, but there is still a choice. And it definitely comes back to, as you said, value systems and being true to you. And I've always kind of looked at it as, you get given a backpack when you enter this world, You start off a really small backpack and there's not very much in it. And as you get older, the people around you put more things in that backpack. And as you grow up, the backpack gets heavier and heavier. And you have to get to a point where you take that backpack off and assess what it is that you want to carry around with you. Because here's the thing, 50% of that stuff you could probably put down right now. Unpack it. Or even leave the backpack and go and get yourself a different bag.
It does break my heart to really know and see so many patients come in with so many problems in A&E, and for us not being able to address this. And this is why I'm so grateful to you, Jo. Thank you so much for what you do every single day, for keeping us in check as doctors, for teaching us how to address experts in their trauma like yourself. Just by listening to you, I have learned so much more than I can do from a textbook. I learned what is important to you and how I can find ways to really support you in your journey, because I'm not there with you 24/7. You are. Yeah. Just like our other patients, right? Who am I to tell you in 10 minutes what to do? But maybe as a physician, I can take that 10 minutes to understand what is important to you. And maybe my expertise within medicine can give you the tools. And I hope that that approach would, even in a broken down NHS where we don't have enough money and funding, maybe that gives a bit of strength and reassurance that there is somebody out there who listens. What do you think?
Absolutely. I unfortunately very recently heard the story of somebody that had been back in A&E trying to take their own life, and they had been told in no uncertain terms that if they tried again they'd be arrested for wasting service time. And that is abhorrently unacceptable to me, because no one does that. The very idea that people with mental health issues are attention seeking, just no. And even if they are,
what is it to give them 5-10 minutes attention?
Exactly.
Why do we have to
stop dismissing things? Yeah,
it's a bad thing. Oh, they're just here attention seeking. I'm sorry, it does trigger me a little bit.
No, I completely, I'm the same.
Whenever I hear this, it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, because it's like, guess what? They're attention seeking because they want attention. And it's not because, anybody that thinks that people choose to live like this are probably the ones that need help, because this is not a choice. This is not anyone's first choice. But listening, that's a choice. And if all you can do in a 5 or 10 minute consultation with someone is to look them in the eye and say with sincerity, I am sorry that you are where you are right now. I don't have a magic wand, but what I do have is a heart and shoulders and ears. What can I do for you? So something me and my husband do when I'm very bad is he will stop and he will say to me, do you want answers? Do you want comfort? And we look at it like that, because we're all too quick to fix. Sometimes somebody doesn't need fixing. Very often they don't need fixing. You just need someone to care. And isn't that what we're supposed to be doing here?
Absolutely. Just a little care goes really, really long way. And Jo, if we would like to sum it up, how our listeners and our patients could start on a journey of change, what would be the 3 points that you would advise them?
I would say, number one, listen to your emotions and honor them, whatever that looks like. Stop apologizing for being you, because it's not necessary. I'd say that's a big one. The second one is find something that you connect with that's beyond yourself, whether that's journaling, art, gardening, running, karate. My other half, that's his thing. Whatever that is, really find that way of escaping in a healthy way, of putting down what's pulling you down for a bit. You can come back to it and you can re-engage with it, but sometimes what you need to do is just take a second. And even if you don't find yourself, I don't do art, the simple act of just getting a random piece of paper and doodling with a biro is actually, so anger is something we spoke about. Even if you literally gouge into the paper or rip the paper up, go and rip up a load of paper, and if you can, go and have a bonfire outside. It's incredibly, it's that connection. It's the connection in the here and now, which is really important, because we forget that and we get very in here, and that doesn't help. And then the third one would be tell your story. However you can, share your truth, whether you do that online or you write a letter to someone, you write a letter to yourself, you reach out in a community like this, because you never know who your words will reach and what power that may have. And it only takes one person. That's all it is, just that one person.
To save your life, to save someone's life.
Exactly. And if you can't think of a reason to be here, then surely that's a good one.
That's beautiful. We had so many supporting messages to you, Jo. Thank you so much for joining us today, for being so brave. This, for us, it's even difficult to talk about basic emotions, let alone about something so traumatizing as what you have gone through. So thank you.
You're very welcome. And like I say, if anyone is feeling that this is a bit too much or that they need additional support, please reach out, because there are lots of other services that we can point you towards.
I must ask about your exhibition. Do tell us a little bit about it, and where can we see it?
Yeah, so it's in a couple of weeks. We've already had a virtual version, which I think is still up, so we could I'll put the link up later, or do a little post on it about it. But essentially it's going to be these pieces that have been made by 12 artists, of which I'm one, about these things from the Mental Health Museum, which is the asylum's kind of legacy. And my piece is a life-size replica of myself made out of my case notes. And it's going to be put on an original asylum mortuary slab, because I want, there will be, so the screen behind me needs working on, but it's going to be the screen that goes alongside it. So again, people can choose if they engage, because choice is something we don't have in the mental health system currently. But the idea is very much about losing the labels and like a chrysalis, and emerging from that and re-embracing my definition of who I am, not what it says on a piece of paper. So it's made up of layers and layers of case notes, journal entries, handouts from therapy, years and years of stuff, and making it has been incredibly powerful for me. So yeah, and the other artists have done some amazing work. There's one of the artists who is very bravely sharing their experience of hearing voices, because that's not something that's really spoken about very much in the mental health space, and I'm incredibly proud of them, feeling empowered to share their journey. And I'm really, really, really grateful to be a part of such an important conversation starter. And I do want it to be a starter. So what I'm hoping is to do some community engagement practice for people who come and see the exhibition, to take a letter or a document of theirs and rip it, tear it, cut it, and turn it into an empowering word. So a small version of what I've done, but then to kind of, you know, carry that forward and keep these conversations going. Because the exhibition site is actually on a working mental health facility from the NHS. So I've invited some of the directors and staff to come and be part of it, because guess what? Staff have mental health too. It's all of us. It's not just a them and us situation. So yeah.
That sounds incredible. I would really like to see that. It must have felt really cathartic to let go of those papers, of the labels, and rebuild your life through new communication that is based on real experience today.
Yeah.
That reflects the past, but using the past as a tool to reshape and remodel your understanding of you today. It doesn't have to define who you are.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And part of the asylum conversation is looking at where we were, where we are in today's modern healthcare system, and where we need to be, because we think we're so advanced with mindfulness and all, but it all has its roots in 1800s occupational health and soldiers coming back from war learning to crochet. All these things aren't new ideas, we've just repackaged them, but there's so much we can learn by looking back to look forward and reintroducing the humanity, the connection.
I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you to say that. Just reconnecting and sharing love is truly, as cliche or as hippie as it sounds, it's all we need. Love is all we need. A hug, please. If it's COVID safe, hug somebody today. Tell them you care about them, or just listen to them for 5 minutes without having to solve their problems.
In fact, I challenge everyone that's listening, and this is now or in the future, when you've finished, go and send a message to someone that you haven't spoken to in a while and just say, I appreciate you.
What a beautiful thing to do.
That's it.
And we do talk a lot about gratitude and the importance to feel gratitude for the day. It's great to journal about it. But how about you actually, as you just said, Jo, you share your gratitude towards someone openly, and not only you will feel good, but they will feel good. Exactly. And guess what? You will feel even better for actually showing some emotion that is positive and truly comes from within.
And exactly. And it's real. It's real. I just sending a message to someone out of the blue and knowing that someone else looks at that and immediately, oh, someone's thinking about me. It doesn't take much. It's such an easy thing to do, but we don't do it enough. Oh, I'm too busy. No, you're not. It takes seconds. No one is too busy to send a message to someone they care about.
And just take that few minutes to do that, please, today. And if you do so, comment on our YouTube. Who did you make feel better? Like who was it? Tell us the story, and how did they respond to it? We would love to challenge you for this. It really takes a few minutes, isn't it?
Or next time you're at the supermarket and you're walking around and you see all the pretty little greetings cards, grab a small one and send it to someone you haven't spoken to in ages. Actually send it to them. Because receiving that, you just never know who you're going to connect with, and you never know how important the timing of that might be.
It might save a life.
Exactly. That's all it takes.
Especially in today's current. Well, thank you so much, Jo, for spreading good and everything, the positivity through reality, the real expression of emotion. You don't have to be happy all the time to be positive about the future, because through that real emotions, you will find through your struggle who you are and what you really need. So for everybody who has joined us today, please subscribe and send Jo the love by sharing this story. You never know whose life is going to change. It takes a click, and very often we share our TikTok silly dances, which is great, makes you happy, but emotions are heavy things, and I think more than ever it's very important to share the love through real emotions. So is there anything else that you would love to share, Jo, with our listeners before we go on to our Zoom chat?
I think we've covered everything. Like I say, if you feel like you do need to reach out to someone, just know that there is more than the GP. If you feel like you're not getting what you need, there are other organisations, and I'm sure we can do something where we put a post together. But there's people like Shout, which is a text service. There's the Samaritans. There's recovery colleges, which are free. Self-refer. You don't need to get in contact with anyone else to do that. There is genuine people who want to help, and if you really do feel like you need to talk to someone, follow me on Instagram, send me a message. I might not be able to reply right away, but I guarantee you I will at some point, because you are important.
What's your handle, Jo?
It's Doll with a Bun. So DOLLWITHABUN for Norman. Doll with a Bun.
And we'll add it into the comments as well. I think it's already there. Thanks once again for joining us, for sharing your story, for being so brave. We cannot wait to have you on the show once again in the future. And please continue your work, because we need it more than ever.
Thank you. I really appreciate the platform to be able to unify, share, and let other people know that it's okay. It is possible to find a way through, and it's always darkest before dawn.
For everyone who has joined us on social media, once again, you can join us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. Handle Afternoon Tea with Docs, Afternoon Tea with Docs, and our website is afternoonteawithdocs.com, where you can become a free member. It will always be free, our services, and you can continue this conversation as well on our community site. So thanks again. We hope to see you next Sunday for another afternoon tea. Have a lovely week. Bye, guys.